vans. These individuals out there, I don't know, again, where they get their license from. But they're crazy, think they have a pickup. Pickup is a heavy vehicle, nothing will happen, You'll forget that a pickup is very easy to topple over as compared to a car. All right? So how y'all swerving in and out of lanes as though you're swimming in the ocean?
SUVs too.
Forget about that. But you see those taxis, those H-taxis, those 7-seater mom vans, mom panel van.
Maxi taxis.
Yeah, those H vehicles. Lord have mercy. Grant me the serenity and the patience to, I don't know. Because sometimes it really gets to me and I just want to put on my window and be like, but I don't.
What I don't get is,
they're most ignorant drivers.
We're in a single lane road. It's a single lane road. There's no oncoming traffic, so you race to overtake me to stop on the corner.
Yep.
To block me. When you could have just not drive aggressively, let me go and stop on the corner. Maxis do it. Taxis do it.
Oh, and the best thing is they don't indicate when they're slowing down. When you're slowing down, you're either turning to the left. You're turning to the left, really, because you want to get to the people.
The best ones is when they barely pull it aside.
They just smash their brakes.
Yeah.
So Trinidad, when it comes to traffic, there's a whole new code and a whole new language. Well, it's not new. I think it's been in existence for some time. And this is the thing: if you could drive in Trinidad with great patience and it really teaches you how to be patient actually and how to be vigilant. I hate it when they just smash their brakes just like that. They just don't indicate at all and you have to stop.
Part of the problem is we've inherited a road network that is way too small for all intents and purposes. Too many choke points, too many limitations. It can't even necessarily, I understand it's difficult to expand, right? What are the solutions? We have not seen, and again, I think you've experienced it in London, I've experienced it in Canada and New York. When public transportation is done right, and it's not to say that it's easy to do, to get this done, right? New York has its issues with regards to keeping its subway system properly financed and not incurring debts, similar to our ferry and air bridge situation. So we don't necessarily want to have something that's going to just saddle us with more debt. The flip side is the loss of productivity because of our traffic. It might just be a bullet we have to bite. We prevent greater loss there by, having a loss-making venture for public transportation. The reason why I say that is not only will it open up our transportation system, allow us to be more efficient with our time, allow our business functions to be more efficient with their time. Distribution and distributors still have to travel by trucks on the road. If it's not as congested, maybe they don't have to drive as aggressively. But then it's also a social good. Now, there is potentially more secure transportation because everybody is potentially worried you're getting the wrong taxi at the wrong hour and what happens to you. And it's not an H car, it's a PH car because H taxis don't run at certain hours, etc., etc., blah, blah, blah.
And PH taxis are still not recognized by the law. I don't know what's going on there. That was supposed to be sorted out since January of last year.
If we have a better public transportation system, and yes, folks, let us not cry over what about the maxi driver jobs and the taxi jobs. First of all, they will still have room for taxis and maxis, potentially. And second of all, not all of them own their own vehicle. They could get a job in a better, more robust, expanded public transportation system. We need that. We need that because I think a lot of this aggressive driving is due to the fact that it's a consequence. The roads are congested and people are in a rush.
Everything Sean said, I spent an hour in traffic this morning, as with every single morning. I spent an hour and a half getting home on an afternoon. It's ridiculous. And let's not, what they say, let's not cry over the maxi driver and the taxi driver. Listen, if a taxi driver cannot drive for the other individual on the road, is the most impatient and ridiculous driver, and absolutely ignorant, take away their license. I really don't care if they lose that living or whatnot. If you have a living, you have to respect others on the road as well, but you also have to look after yourself. And the way they drive, not only do they break the speed limit, but they drive up in your bumper, they're overtaking, driving erratically, right? Quite frankly, take away their license. I don't care. I really do not care. If you don't care, why should I care about you? If you don't have respect, why is it that we should cry over the fact that your license is lost and you can't ply your trade? Why? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program now, and return, well, conversation continues. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Tickets are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We started off this morning a little bit lighter there. My co-host was going into some of his pet peeves, and I went into some of my pet peeves on the road, as we sometimes do, because commuting in TNT is not necessarily the most enjoyable of experiences. One of the last things that my co-host said with regards to the aggression seen by taxi drivers, I'd just like to make one final point. Our airline, the national airline, the regional carrier, CAL, and its predecessor, BWIA, they have one thing going for them, one intangible asset that helps keep the value of their airline where it is, and that is their safety record. And it's interesting to note that in an industry where survival is very tricky with the airline industry, you know, there is an incentive to rush flights out there, for planes to fly faster, for maintenance to have shortcuts. But somehow in TNT, we have one major industry that has so far managed to avoid any sort of blemishes on their safety record. Something that larger international carriers from the first world, from North America and Europe, don't necessarily, they can't say what our own airline can say. So it's something to consider when we want to speak about our country and what we have and do not have. We can do it. This is just an example of our excellence. Well, in one aspect of how our airline is run. Now, moving on. Last night, Keaton and I, we were invited, as well as Mrs. Denise Martin, our head of news, to an event hosted by the People's National Movement, not necessarily by the government. A distinction that some people might not necessarily appreciate, but it does matter on a technical level with regards to the nature of the event, what it is for, what it's trying to accomplish, and to those who want to be cynics, who is potentially financing said event. It wasn't a large event. It was a mix and mingle with the media and members of the PNM. A lot of government ministers were there. And it was an event, I guess you could say. We're not entirely sure if this was done well, if if the timing had anything to do with the editorial that came out over the end of last week there after the Prime Minister's press conference and the perception of gatekeeping with regards to independent media. So last night, the event wasn't too long, but the Prime Minister did address those gathered there on that very same issue. He took advantage of the situation. His content, I don't necessarily disagree with. His delivery in this case, while I would have preferred a different style, I thought might have been more effective. This wasn't a national address, so it's a bit more forgivable. And the long and short is there are practical considerations that was not discussed with regards to selection of the media that appears at the press conferences. And that is basically, it can't be a free-for-all, and there needs to be some sort of vetting process. So if someone just appears, you can't necessarily take their word for it. Well, you have a lanyard that says press and you're allowed in. Now, to be fair, for some journalists like those of AZP News who have been to press conferences, whether in person or virtually, for the Ministry of Health, there is a question as to why certain individuals or media houses like that were not already vetted by the Office of the Prime Minister. With that said, I understand that it's not so straightforward. You can't just have it open to all. And it is an example where there are considerations we have to account for, generally for all government business. But like I said, the flip side is, I am curious as to why it is that the process, it was not already carried out. I don't necessarily think it was necessary to bar certain journalists.
First of all, let me analyze this entire event last night. Sean and I were invited to this yesterday morning, and actually we also received an apology for the late invitation. But nevertheless, we were thankful for the invitation.
Yes.
And it was a pleasure to be there and really mix and mingle with some ministers and other members of the People's National Movement. And yes, there is this distinction, because even though it's a PNM-led government, this was actually held by the party and not by the government. The Prime Minister's speech in particular, there were instances of which I agree with, there were instances of which I disagreed with. I think one of the biggest cons of him saying that he's only going to invite mainstream media is essentially that there will be other independent news outlets who will not get to ask questions. And that is perhaps a pro for the Prime Minister and a con for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I did understand where he was coming from with respect to, it seems as though a blogger now is referring to themselves as a journalist, but that does not apply to all those who actually spoke out against the situation. For example, Robert Amar is not a he's not a blogger. ACP News, they're not a blogger.
Who was there at the event?
They were there at the event. They had
representatives
representations at the event. So I mean, to me, there were points of which I agreed with. There were points of which I disagreed with. The timing was a bit, very peculiar. To me, this seems as though this was a last-minute thing that was planned, because the entire basis of this event was journalists and ministers. The other side of it is that there are local government elections coming up this year. There's also the end of the year into this year, what the government plans to do, and the government will also probably want a footing in media to get that seat at the table to ensure that their side and their views are always heard. And as I said last night, and I think you mentioned it quite a few times as well, we've never denied or debarred any minister or government official from coming on the station. There's just difficulty in getting through to them, which I'm hoping that following last night's event, that it will be corrected.
I share that hope. I got a sense, at least speaking to the Minister of Communications, I'm hoping from his words. So it's not as though he said this outright. This is my optimistic interpretation that perhaps the government is looking to be more engaging. I think part of their communication strategy over the last few years was more as a result of having difficulty with communication, ministers potentially having small snafus. Because when they started out, you didn't really have like the big controversies that you might have had in more recent years. Small snafus that just didn't look good, and it was easier, okay, let's refrain from speaking off the cuff. However, that does not necessarily work in the long run. You cannot avoid public engagement as the leadership of society and the government and the people who have to administer our bureaucracy. I
think overall, I was very grateful for the event because we got to break the ice on a certain level. What was rather interesting is that there were quite a number of ministers who knew Sean and I from the program, which is good. At least they're watching the program. We had quite a few interesting conversations. Dr. Amy Brown, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, thoroughly enjoyed that conversation that we had. We spent quite some time. Simon Nobre, the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications, Paula Gopi-Schoon, Janice Scott, who's the new Youth Officer for the People's National Movement, Laurel Lazama-Leasing, absolutely brilliant, and very much grateful for her help as well. Even, funny enough, I went up to Stuart Young and shook his hand, and he laughed. He says, yes, I am Stuart Young. I'm the individual that you're always bad talking, you know. Colin Mimbert looks at me, he shakes my hand, and he laughs. He says, yeah, well, I don't recognize the face, so I don't think you have bad talking so much as yet.
Oh, like, you see, now,
right,
I don't think we have, yes, I was introduced to Faris, he shook my hand, I felt very besides myself because I have nothing personal against Mr. Harari, but I have been one of his largest critics, I think, with regards to when he was the Attorney General. So I did not do it because I wanted to see him knocked down. It's ultimately not necessarily a pleasant thing. I'm not happy for doing it. So when I was introduced to him, I felt just a
Sean,
tad bit guilty.
No, Sean, you must not. No,
no, I can't take back what I said. I can't take back.
It's not that.
What I said.
Why are you apologizing? Why
I'm not apologizing.
No, hold on.
I'm not apologizing.
Why are you even suggesting that you felt a tad bit guilty? You see, the point is, Sean, and Simon de Nobrega said this, and this is what I was very appreciative of, and this is what I respected. He says, I don't mind you looking at me and telling me I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm happy if I'm the wrong one. I'd love to listen to you if you tell me that I'm wrong. Just make sure that you come with something good.
Yeah.
You know, don't come with fluff. Come with something of substance.
Yeah.
Don't come with just your agenda. And this is the thing. So yes, the ministers recognized us. They knew us. We had excellent conversations with many of them. Mm-hmm. I even met the Prime Minister and spoke to him for a bit. But overall, the thing is that if it is that, and this is why I liked it, because it shows that the human side of ministers as well. That, which is very, very important. The human side of ministers, the personalities, you know, and it was really good. And this is why I said, if it is that we can have this show and we can have constructive criticism, there's a difference between criticism and constructive criticism, right? And these ministers could speak about it, they know about it, they're very much well aware of it, then I'm grateful for that. It means as though not only are they listening, but at the same time, they hold nothing against us personally. And we hold nothing against them personally either. Now, at times we were very much open. Mm-hmm. You know, spoke to them and said, listen, your communication has not been great. It's been rather poor. You know, there was constructive criticism that flowed last night as well. And they were receptive to it. That's the most important thing. At the end of it all, do we expect anything to change after last night? Well, I think the only thing that we are expecting to and hoping to change is that we're able to welcome more government officials, more PNM officials to the station. And
we're hoping. We're hoping. Now, that human side of the officials, it's not to say, oh, now we've seen the human side and we're going to go easy on the government. No. First of all, we would like to see that from the other politicians, whether they be the opposition, whether they be third party, whether they be the former PDP assemblymen and councillors in Tobago, right? We would like to see that across the board. We need to remember that politicians ultimately are people, and if you are looking to criticize them with a lot of bubble and a lot of personal attacks, you are tearing down an individual. Don't necessarily expect them to be willing to work with you, to engage with you. That's why I do believe, for the most part, all of our criticism has always been about what they do. With regards to their job, with regards to their professional capacity, how has the opposition communicated? How has the government communicated its policies, the decisions they make? With regards to a lot of their personal stuff and them as individuals, we have to try to separate that. That's why I don't like it when the language of the debate turns into all of these sort of, hyperbole attacks. This wicked so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And trust me, both sides do it, right? The supporters especially, right? And of course, certain politicians, they're more or less, I guess you could say, famous for that. Now, with that said, I think it's important that we get, we like having members of the opposition on, but government sets policy. So when we are trying to dissect and give our opinions on what they're doing, I have no issues. Just like how, at times with what the Minister of Communication said, he has no issues being told he's wrong. We also have no issues being told we're wrong. Once we get some good detailed reasoning why our assumptions or perceptions might be incorrect, no problem with that. And then we'll reassess our opinions on whatever the matter is. But also, I just want to say, because you're hoping for a change, and I think the timing of the event is not an issue. It doesn't really mean anything. If this is a signal that the government is looking to change their communication strategy, be more open, try to be more engaging, so that they could get information out there. But if this is just a band-aid over what happened last week, then the timing makes it look even worse. So I'm waiting to see. As I said, with respect to the opposition will always be a friend to the media, because the opposition, they themselves won their seat. That's all they have to do.
And,
that's the only thing they have.
And they themselves want to talk, and the media will always give them the opportunity.
Yeah,
hold on. We have given them the opportunity on this station, and we've welcomed members of the opposition many a times. To me, I think the biggest disappointment is government ministers, as I mentioned before, very, very difficult to get through to. And again, we're trying to break that ice, and certain connections were made last night. But more so, I think I'm also, and I'll express it one time, since you raised the opposition, since you raised Tobago, I'm more so disappointed in Tobago for the fact that leading up to the major elections in Tobago, we welcomed the PDP to the station. We were very happy to have that discussion. And we've even reached out to the PNM Tobago Council, who themselves, I'll be honest with you, they've actually made themselves more available, again, because they are opposition. They need the airtime. It's good for their publicity. But whilst I understand and respect that, for example, Dr. Faith B. Israel is now Deputy Chief Secretary, as well as the Secretary for Health, Wellness and Family, very busy individual. I have seen these individuals make an effort on other stations, and it seems as though they've completely forgotten us. And I say that in the sense that it is sad. It's a bit disrespectful, to be honest with you, and it makes you quite angry. And that is why, if I may say so, and I will be open and tell the public, listen, to a certain extent, we've given up on trying to reach out to them. And one of our directors recently says, no, we're going to start back. We're going to try again. It's a new year. It's a fresh time. So we are going to try and start again, but towards the end of last year, we just gave up.
Now, to be fair to the government, to the PNM, it's not just us. We also notice a lack of interviews with other media houses. Yes, there'll be print stuff when events.
You did? Then clearly you
what I mean to say, we've had a few, there have been a few other, but how many interviews do the ministers take on a regular basis?
Do you follow any other morning shows? Do you follow any other morning shows on other stations? Because they're always on. Even Denise Martin, our head of news, will tell you that.
All right, okay. I stand corrected. So, but I just thought that across the board, the government was not available as it should have been across the board, right?
Across the board, if we're using that term, yes, they made themselves available to mainstream media, as the Prime Minister alluded to last night. But
it still, to me, it still felt more limited than it should be. And I just want to go back to the opposition. I will say this, to his credit, and this is one thing, you yourself mentioned it is good that the Prime Minister came and had the press conference on the issue. He took questions from the media after. And one thing that he pointed out, and it's true, and I think we pointed out at least once within the last 2 years, the leader of the opposition does not do any interviews at all. No. Or take any questions from the media.
Believe you me, Sean and I have tried. We've reached out to Dr. Kirkmew. He's a very hard-working individual, by the way.
Yes.
He's always on top of his game. He's always on top of the ball. To the extent that sometimes when you have 10, 15 messages from him on a daily basis, you get a bit frustrated. But that's excellent. He is communicating. But yes, the opposition leader, she herself needs to do a lot more and play her role as well. The thing is, I'm just of the belief that she cannot.
Well, and therein lies the problem. And I think the thing with the government and the opposition is this. I understand that the jobs might be challenging, right? But you need to be able to actually meet that challenge at least to a satisfactory degree. Otherwise, why are you in that job? And in the opposition leader's case, if you want to say that you're better than the other party, than your counterpart, then you actually have to, on a practical level, in more ways than just trying to put forward your very sanitized, well-crafted, unchallenged message on your broadcast, you need to make yourself more available to defend your position.
All right, we have to take a break, but I will agree with you in the sense that
the government needs to do that as well.
Okay, yeah. Now we're repeating ourselves. We know that. We're aware of that.
Just want to make sure for people who want to say bias.
With respect to the opposition leader, you know, the thing is, for me, I really don't think she can handle an interview. I don't think she can do an interview. Well, then she shouldn't be opposition leader. We've welcomed her to the program for whatever reason. She's never been able to make it. And you see, the thing is, for me, I think one of the biggest signs is that she's constantly reading from a paper. Her speech is always written for her and prepared for her. So this is why I don't think she can do an interview by herself, or she can speak on a political platform by herself, or have a debate. She needs everybody else around her. She needs somebody to guide her. She can't just do it by herself. I may be wrong, but that is my opinion based on what I've seen.
Now, respond to that after the break.
We're going to go to the break now. We'll be right back after this.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
On the next episode of Nicole Larson Live, Living in Victory every day.
Take us back to the beginnings.
Okay, so I think I can remember my childhood as far back, I think probably about 4 or 5, actually, because that's kind of dramatic. That's when I would have been raped. So I think that's where my consciousness starts in terms of my childhood and myself. I remember clearly I had 2 decent panties. So I would go to school in one, and those days you had this kind of girl thing behind the fridge. I go to school in one, wash it and my socks, and put it behind the fridge to dry for the next day.
There are significant benefits to operating one's charitable or ministerial work under a non-profit organization.
When you're between a rock and a hard place, it wouldn't be the dead end. God is making you strong before making you happy.
Nico Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to Talking About. And I just wanted to say, after the closing comments of my co-host with regards to the leader of the opposition not being able to handle a live debate where you have to think off your feet. Usually this is where advisors and PR people and technical advisors would prep you on what to say and what not to say. And I do think our politicians should try to figure out, I get it, this is not something that they are used to, that our landscape is used to, so we have to learn to some extent. We have to build up those capacities from scratch. However, there are examples potentially to follow, people being educated in universities for this very role. And I think at this point we're seeing the deficiencies from our politicians across the board. And I would like to think that, you know, composition would say, I should try to do better to stand out from the crowd. And then it will be difficult for my opposition to overdo me. What say you, Keaton? But anyway, we have another topic to get into.
Moving on with the 10 minutes that we have left, and I hope to expand on this topic given the time. But this was posted over the weekend to one of our daily newspapers, and I'm actually grateful that they covered it because it's a situation that is plaguing many here in Trinidad and Tobago. It stems from Tobago, first of all. Attorneys in Tobago are fed up and frustrated over the operations of the probate registry. They're calling for the urgent intervention by Chief Justice Ivor Archie to address those issues. The issues being faced are a growing number of complaints about the process surrounding applications of letters of administrations and grants of probate. So, a couple things. Essentially, it takes forever in order for your probate of somebody's will to actually go through. Some people are waiting years. In fact, I personally know of one individual who has now been waiting 8 years to actually get their father's will. Their father passed away 8 years ago. And since then, they've been trying to get that probate to go through. Up to now, there has been nothing. According to the individual's lawyer, over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything was shut down, the courts were taking appointments in order for the probate to go through. And because it was taking such a long time, there were attorneys who were actually booking appointments blocks at a time. So in other words, multiple appointments in a row at a time. So in some instances, you had to wait months in order to get an appointment. On top of which, at the same time, there are some lawyers who have links. I mean, anything in Trinidad now is links. It's who know you and who you know. And they were able to get through the system much faster. So that was one thing. Another thing is that they have individuals, and this same lawyer actually informed that they have individuals or clients who have waited for wills to go through, and up until this point, it cannot go through, so much so it's been 20 years plus. Some of their clients have actually passed away. And because the clients have passed away and the will never went through, there's actually nobody to inherit the inheritance. So there's nobody to actually get the inheritance.
So then pass it down.
So the property and all the assets are just sitting there, idly. And this is an issue that we have to address. One issue was also raised over Shagona's woman has sued the judiciary's probate registry over a decision to require her to do a paternity test in order to receive letters of administration for the estate of her father, who passed away 19 years ago. Her father died in May 2003 without leaving a will. She was only, in February of last year, she made the application to the registry with her siblings' consent, as she was the only one interested in their father's modest estate, which merely comprises a parcel of agricultural land that he did not hold the title to, but was allowed to cultivate before he died. Now, what they're suggesting is that she does a paternity test. She's saying, my father was cremated 19 years ago, and he has no living siblings, so who is it that can assist? Because I can
Where are they going to get the DNA
I could show
from?
you that I'm related to my brother or to my sister, but I cannot prove that I'm related to my father. So this is another issue, ladies and gentlemen, that we're dealing with here in Trinidad. And one of the reasons why I've raised this is because why is it taking 20 plus years in order for probates to go through? I can't understand why it's taking so long. What is it with the court system that this cannot go through in a year or less? And the reason why it's a bigger issue for me is because I've said it before on this program and I will say it again. A lot of people are now going to survive from inheritance. Given the current economic climate, the current job climate, and the situation that is affecting Trinidad and Tobago, yes, around the world, but we're speaking specifically to Trinidad and Tobago and the economics of Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of people are going to survive based off of inheritance. Because people, for example, people can't afford to buy property. Property in Trinidad and Tobago is absolutely ridiculous in terms of prices. And a lot of them can't afford it, so they're only going to be able to live through inheritance. Now, you could live in a deceased person's house, but the issue with that is the title, the deed of the land, the deed of the property is not going to be in your name. All the bills are not going to be in your name. So when you have to go to get, for example, you have to go get your, to vote, you need your ID card to vote. But you can't get your ID card if you do not have a utility bill. In some instances, if you go to a bank, you need a utility bill to prove your address.
To renew your driver's
license. All
license,
of those things are issues, and you realize it's a chain effect. Who's going to address it? Chief Justice Ivor Archie. I hope you're listening this morning. You weren't there last night.
Well, I mean...
no, I don't know why not. Again, it was a PNM function. We saw Noel Garcia there last night. I don't know why Ivor Archie wasn't there, but let me not be... I'm not trying to be too facetious. The point is, if it is that you know this issue is unsettling many people for decades, and quite frankly, I think you should be aware, I assume you would read the newspapers at least, then do something about it. And if there are difficulties in actually correcting the system of which you are in charge of, then come out to the public and address the issue and say these are the difficulties and challenges we're facing. Because we're not going to have a great understanding, or we can't give the public all the answers, all the reasons as to why it is like it is, without you coming and informing us.
The thing is, this to me is a symptom to a bigger problem. And we see this in a lot of other bureaucracies with regards to our public administration. When we say government, a lot of times people essentially mean the party in power, the ministers, the cabinet, the MPs. But government is more than that. That is the tip of the iceberg, and under the water, under the surface, there is this colossal mammoth of a bureaucracy, and the inefficiency of it. And to some extent, there are a lot of reasons. A lack of modernization and digitization is one. But then there's also the fact that I think a lot of our systems were put in place, quite frankly, when our needs and requirements were a lot less. When our country, in many ways, was smaller and it was much more manageable to do things that way.
Archaic systems are in place.
Systems, right?
In 2023.
So now, and this is just, to me, the wider implications of PARIA is similar to this, with regards to how does our bureaucracy run and why can't it run well. So it's not just the criminal part of the judiciary, now it's another part of the judiciary. So it's exposing, it's not just what the police prosecutors do or don't do. Let's not try to throw one segment of one sub-segment under the bus. With regards to PARIA, I got upset from the rescue efforts. But in the long run, the concern as a nation with the long-term and the wider implications is how the whole thing was set up with regards to the award of the contract, with regards to not enforcing the requirement of having a proper rescue plan, with regards to the contract holder not having any supervision of the job site, and not necessarily, with neither side necessarily performing their responsibilities as well as they should have. And while the consequences in other areas of our government business is not necessarily as dire, well, I could see similar types of breakdowns. And in this case now, the inefficiency, right? It's just like with regards to the inefficiency of our criminal justice system. So it's, at the end of the day, these are a lot of things that need to be cleaned up, and they're long term. Look at what they're saying, 20 years. This goes beyond any single administration, right? Now, however, we do have to ask which group of politicians are going to be willing to tackle this in a substantial way.
No, hold on.
Because it's been lying under the surface, and they've been happy to let sleeping dogs lie.
Now, if we're speaking specifically to the probate registry, if we're speaking specifically to that and the system in place, when you use the term government, I think we need to be specific. It is one arm of the government. You have the executive, you have the legislative, and you have the judiciary. It is the judiciary who is in charge of doing this. So not no government minister, right? This is not Faris or Stuart Young. This is more so the judiciary, and this is why Chief Justice Ivor Archie is at the center of this. This is a nuisance. This problem is really a nuisance. And after 20 years, individuals having to do this and go through this still.
But Keaton, if a criminal prosecution could take 10 to 15 years and a will probate could take 20 plus years, to me, this is just another sign of a wider problem. Forget in the rest of the government's bureaucracy, just in the judiciary alone.
But we know
just
that.
In the judiciary
but
alone.
we know that, Sean.
And I'm sorry, decades, when you're counting delays with regards to decades, we're not even, delays should be months. Years is bad. Decades is, so I would think unacceptable.
You stated the obvious.
No, I know we know this, but I think a lot of people might have just thought, oh, it's limited to the criminal side of things. No. It's the wider judiciary. It seems as though now it's hard for me not to assume the entire administration of the judiciary is a problem.
Sean Michael Small, you are stating the obvious. We know this.
I'm just, all right. But it's confirmed. It's not just rumor. It's not just hearsay. It's not just...
It was confirmed even before this article came out. If you talk to anybody in your family or any of your friends, people might not want to reveal this information. It's their personal information. We respect that.
That's my point.
But they speak to you about this probate situation. They will tell you it is hell.
Keaton, that's my point. Sources and methods. I could know something. I could have intelligence about something. But when I have multiple sources now that are public, at least from our perspective now, we have evidence.
Sean, go read the article. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 26 arrested in Operation Grand Slam in Northern Division. 2 arrested, 5 kilos of drugs, ammo seized. Over $300 million in debt paid to HGC. And internationally, minimal chance of survival following a missile strike. Now for the details. Divisional commanders of the North, Central and Northern Divisions collaborated when they executed Operation Grand Slam over the past weekend. The operation, an intelligence-led house search and roving exercise, was conducted throughout specific areas and districts within the North Central Division and Northern Division. Operation Grand Slam was initiated to suppress and dismantle the gang-related and other criminal activities within the 2 neighboring divisions. In the NCD, 12 male suspects between the ages of 22 and 44 were detained for gang-related offenses. Meanwhile, as officers in the Northern Division swooped down on targeted areas in that division, 14 persons were arrested during the operation. A Tobago man was arrested on Sunday after police officers seized 5.4 kilograms of marijuana from a vehicle in his charge. During a port exercise, a vehicle was searched after the K9 unit reacted. Officers attached to the Tobago Divisional Task Force and the K9 unit completed a thorough search, and the marijuana was found concealed in the tailgate and below the drawer liner of the vehicle tray. The 45-year-old driver of Bethesda, Plymouth, who is a public servant, was arrested and is expected to be charged. Meanwhile, in Trinidad, officers of the Interagency Task Force also seized a number of drugs as well as ammunition during a search exercise. According to reports, officers executed a search warrant for firearms and ammunition at the Beetham Gardens residence. The search led to the seizure of 500 grams of marijuana and the arrest of a 32-year-old male resident in connection with the find. Over $300 million in debt has been paid to HGC contractors. Confirmation from the Housing Minister, Camille Robinson-Regis, on Monday.
Because as we have examined our database, we have determined that several of our customers would best be served by rental units, others by mortgage units, and that is what we are trying to do as the HDC continues in its obligation to provide affordable housing solutions.
And internationally, the mayor of Dnipro has warned there may be no further survivors after Saturday's Russian missile strike on an apartment building in the eastern Ukrainian city. A whole section of the 9-story block collapsed, and authorities say at least 40 people died. Rescue efforts are continuing. Several others are still missing, and 75 survivors were injured. There is a minimal chance of finding others alive. On Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin's spokesman insisted that the Russian military did not strike at residential buildings. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WSN Content Capital. Thank you very much to Ms. Marquise Akers for news on the hour. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's open up the phone lines. Are you having issues? Some people might not want to state this publicly. I respect that as your personal business. But if you are willing to, are you having issues with a family member's will and the probate registry here in Trinidad and Tobago? Well, call in and talk to us and let us know. I know it is an extremely common issue. And that's why I use the term plaguing Trinidad and Tobago. So let's open up the phone lines now, ladies and gentlemen, where you can share your views and opinions with us and express your thoughts. Just remember, we have one phone line that is currently working, so we ask that you just be mindful of the time, and please do not wait until, according to Sean, 9:25.
Yes.
The 11th hour, do not wait until then to call in. You might not get the time to contribute, and we don't really want to cut anybody off.
Call in if you have any horror stories with delays with regards to, a court matter, or even with the general government bureaucracy. Call in, let us know. I'm curious about that. If you're willing to speak about it, of course, your name and your identity will be not be given out to the public. So there's a certain amount of anonymity.
Technically, we don't know your name anyway.
We don't.
We don't know your identity.
So I mean, you never know. Some people might say too much and identify themselves, so be careful not to do that. But call and let us know what you think. In the meantime, I'd just like to point out that oil prices seem to be in flux. The irony of the oil price cap that was enforced on Russia, it actually, I have seen one analyst say it seems to be working surprisingly well, contrary to what was thought to happen with regards, because ships are not willing and nations are not willing to try to subvert the cap. And as a result, oil prices, I think, generally are dropping, or at least rather, there's also the phenomenon of oil prices dropping, but they're fluctuating due to what's going on in China and things being volatile. It could hopefully mean, on one hand, that the price of our gas could fall. Hopefully.
Listen, it's good news and bad news for TNT.
But then, yes, it's bad news.
It's
Yes.
good news and bad news. The good news is that if it is that the government was serious about a partial adjustment to the fuel subsidy, maybe they might reconsider, reverting to where it was before. But then again,
I don't know if we can. I honestly don't know if we can.
But then again. The bad news is, with a drop in prices, it means a drop in revenue for TNT.
Yes.
So
now natural gas is not oil, so they're,
I know.
So they're linked, but they're not exactly the same.
Yin and yang, actually. But we have a caller on the line with us from Tunapuna. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
Yeah. Well, everything that was said about the judiciary is known, not only to us, but internationally. Everybody could see. A blind man could see what is taking place when it comes to efficiency and works to be done and to be done in the right way, speedily. Because when they delay these things years upon years, it causes more problem and everything just piling up. People dying, going and leaving everything unfinished. I think this is totally, what I'm telling you, it's totally, I'm dissatisfied with this judiciary system. It needs to revamp, everything needs to change and look into and bring it up to par. And let us, at least, I'm always saying, we need lots of constitutional reform in everything, because we are in the 21st century. The laws that they had before and the stuff they had before that they have, when it comes to even the constitution, the judiciary, everything, it's not fitting in. It's not fitting in today's world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution. Two things. I keep questioning. I don't know if anybody has an answer for me. And when I say an answer, I mean like the actual answer, not just an opinion-based answer. But what is causing these delays in the judiciary? Because it seems as though nobody can give me a response. Nobody can give me an answer. And I am very curious as to what is causing. Because once you identify the causes, you can probably find solutions to it. And this is the thing. Is it being left this way on purpose? On the flip side, with respect to constitutional reform, I think we agree with you. I think there's no doubt about it. We agree with you. The issue is the government of the day and the government before this government, so the previous administration, in 2010 to 2015, the current constitution benefits every single one of them. And this is why it's the absolute last thing that they will ever touch. The second to last thing will be procurement regulation. But constitutional reform will be the last thing they ever touch.
But I think the longer it goes on, because again, it's similar to what they say about American Social Security, even way back when. It's the third rail of politics, touch it and you die, because you don't want to mess with it. The measures to fix it might basically be akin to austerity measures, which is never popular to
no, not at all.
So now, with regards to constitutional reform, with regards to the judiciary, with regards to procurement legislation, while it's not necessarily going to be unpopular with the general populace, directly, there'll be a lot of things that make it difficult, and they are in part changing. Listen, the public sector is just like any group of any labor pool. When you change the work conditions on them, the unions are going to be upset. Sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. It's just that's the nature of the game, and it's a tall order. That's the other issue. I think what we don't necessarily appreciate the difficulties of running the country. And again, if you can't handle the fire, get out of the kitchen. I get it, but to fix a lot of these problems, the task is so tall. I could understand why politicians are breaking from it. Let's worry about elections and not worry about actually fixing these long-term problems, because it's not going to blow up in our faces just yet, but eventually it will blow up in somebody's face, and the mess would have grown so much to the point where it's going to be unrecognizable.
There might be a caller here who can give us some answers. I'm sitting here some answers.
Well, at least you tell us how it used to run properly.
Good morning, caller from Shigonas.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I see you complaining this morning about some law not being enforced. But we have established that we don't enforce law. Not only that, we deliberately don't enforce it. Because how you enforce your laws and tie it with your annual administrative report, and we not do it. And make it worse, you come up with a solution of making a new law. Instead of making a new law if you're not enforcing law. It makes no sense.
I hear
You have
you.
to be logical if you're going to be on this program. And finally, I see you go back blaming the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is a fact that the government is a bureaucracy. You can't do nothing about that. But there is a method for managing a bureaucracy, and that is important. And the key portion of it is the same annual administrative report. Any questions, gentlemen?
One question.
Sure.
By chance, do you have any idea what's causing the extensive delay in the judicial system?
Everything is the same thing. No government. Because if you have a problem in the public service, when I was there, you address it and you come up with a solution. And if you could implement it, you implement it. If you have to go to the permanent secretary at his monthly heads of department, you would bring it up here. If it couldn't go to him, a note was sent to cabinet. If cabinet could change the policy, they change it. If it needs a change in law, then they send it to the Law Reform Commission to draft the necessary law. There's procedure to deal with all these things which nobody is using.
Well, that's it, Professor. Thank you very much for your contribution. We hope to gain, well, we've gained some logic thanks to your explanations.
I would just like to say, something you said it prompted me to think, it's how you manage the bureaucracy. And I get that. However, with our political climate, I think sometimes the tail wags the dog. And the labor and the unions and the population, the government is not willing to say, no, this has to change, this has to improve. Because more often than not, Keaton, first of all, some of the people that are working there can't keep up with the improvements or the demands or the higher expectations. And then the other thing is the bloat. The bloat and the lack of merit-based promotions and efficiency and all of that sort of change, some of the people that are there don't want to see those changes.
So
not all, but some.
You just mentioned that some of the individuals who are there probably can't keep up with the changes.
They can't, so they don't want to.
That got me thinking. We are going through a digital revolution, or at least we're supposed to be. And I'm of the opinion, I'm of the belief that it is long overdue, and again, it is something that is being delayed for whatever reason. But I'm wondering now if the individuals working in the public service, when all these institutions and organizations and government entities become fully digitalized, whether or not they're computer literate to actually work and function in these offices and actually carry out their duties in an effective and efficient manner. I don't know, something to think about. Call on the line with us from El Socorro. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Yes, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, my contribution is I would like to say a major part of this problem in the legal and judicial fraternity is greedy lawyers who are helping to delay and clog the system. Give it a thought.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
I will say this. I think that theory is probably true. I just don't think that's the only reason. But I think it's true. And because there are other factors, it allows the greedy lawyers to kind of hide within the mix. Right? Because it's not, if they were the only reason, then it would be very apparent, hey, you're just doing this out of greed, and it would be easier to kind of correct that. I think they're hiding with the mix of a lot of inefficiencies.
Cole, you have a point. It ties back into something that Sean and I were privy to, I think, in the middle of last year. Someone came to visit us to express an issue that they were facing. And I'll get more insights actually in a moment, but let's take this call first from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Gentlemen, morning.
Good morning.
Last night I listened to the Public Utilities Minister talk about the closing down of the 3 landfills. and the implementation of some new system. He could not elaborate to my satisfaction on what this new system is supposed to be. But an integral part of the system is supposed to be swim call. My issue with swim call over the time that they have been in charge of landfills and waste disposal is that they have failed to implement any sort of serious recycling system in this country.
Yes.
Utterly failed. And let me say this, I have been doing recycling on my own for over 10 years now. I separate my food waste. I separate my, I have my bottles. I do a lot of, I buy a lot of glass bottles because I don't like plastic. So as much as I can avoid the plastics, I do. The good system about that is Carib Glassworks have a system where when you have bottles and you have sufficient, you can call them and they come and they pick it up.
Yeah.
They have been picking up my bottles for over 10 years. I have 3 large bins. And in the early they used to give you something for it. Now they don't. However, it doesn't deter me because my thing is I am contributing to a system. The problem is that when I separate my waste, right? Carib picks up the bottles. I still have to, the food waste can go in a little compost. However, the other stuff, I just separate it and put it in the bin for them to throw away. The plastics, whatever I have, the cardboards, those things still have to go in the dump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they need to understand that if they're serious about this thing, they need to implement some sort of proper recycling into a national system in this country.
Caller, if you realize,
yes?
No, I agree with you, and I thank you for doing your part. But the minister himself couldn't elaborate on it. And you're right about SwimCall and no recycling initiative. At least none that I'm aware of. I know ICNTT, which is the big recycling bins, comes from EMA. But one of the more prominent recycling companies now, a lot of them are private. For example, New Age Recycling. I don't know if you've seen their trucks. It's Hardcore Group. So I'm wondering if there are contracts that are being given out and SwimCall themselves are not doing what they should be doing. You know, I'm just wondering, you know. But thank you very much, caller, for your contribution. So that's the thing. If you have a state entity or a state enterprise that should be doing, and it's a very good point this caller has raised, that should be doing what they are there for, what they were established for, they're not doing it. What's the point?
I think, though, the one issue I have is with plastics, and I agree with the caller, and I do wonder, because when they had legislation to ban styrofoam, my immediate mind was, oh, that's cute, but what about all the plastic bottles?
I don't know why we're giving out contracts for these things. You know,
the thing is glass bottles are much more expensive, but here's the thing, recycling plastic is from what I understand, extremely expensive to the point where that's why you don't really see that much recycled plastic industries around the world. I think there's one effort in Germany that I heard of. They make a simple new product out of recycled plastic, and the price of it is so prohibitive.
Then I'll tell you what, we have a call to take, but we need to do some more research on that, because if that is the case, then what is the point of this entire movement to go plastic-less and waste-less and recycling?
Well, plastic-less, I think, is the key. At least right now, is the key.
But we still using plastics all the time. We have a caller on the line with us from Marval. Good morning, caller.
Yeah.
Morning, you're on here.
Not yet.
Yes, you are. You're on here with us. This is Sean and Keaton. You're on here. You're live.
Hello, morning, fellas.
Good morning.
How are you, Marval calling?
Yes. We're okay. Happy New Year.
Well, you know, it's a long time, but I listen to you when all your callers call and you wish them all a Happy New Year and whatever, and Old Year, whatever. You know what? I want to find out 3 things. Quick, you know, I don't talk for long. The Tobago Carnival in November, when I was up there, they had one band on the Sunday, costume band going through Scarborough. One. Last week, Ramsey Moore and them sent an army of bands to the Panorama, small bands. They come first.
bands galore. 40% of the bands in the final, 16 instead of 12 in this final, nobody in the grandstand. What I want to ask is this. Now I see the Tobago Carnival Association saying that they need more money from MTC to run Carnival for their parade for Carnival Monday and Tuesday. But yet in November, they didn't want anybody from NCC to be involved. They sent their group to the Grenada and to Miami to see what was going on because they say they want to change the attitude of Carnival. How many carnivals Tobago want?
I don't know.
Who in charge of Tobago Carnival? And what the hell going on? Now you want to boycott the Carnival in Tobago for Ash Wednesday because you're saying that you don't have enough money. But for your Tobago Carnival, you didn't want no Trinidadians there except people to spend the money. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
I have an issue.
By the way, it's the Tobago Carnival Band Leaders Association, huh? Is the Tobago Carnival Band Leaders Association.
So this is not the actual.
So this is not the actual association.
This is not an official.
Yeah. So this is not like a THA-led thing.
I have an issue. I saw this with regards to the hotel industry, where the government kept giving out grants and loans throughout the years, and I thought, well, hold on. The problem is it's not sustainable. So if you give them a loan, how are they going to pay it back? If you give them a grant, are you going to give them a next grant when that money runs out? Yes, it's for renovations, but there's a reason why they need help to have renovations, because they have a problem getting enough customers. Trinidad could only supply weekend customers and very limited seasonal customers. So August, parts of July, Easter to some extent, Christmas to some extent, and then, you know, a lot of it is just weekend. It could be long weekends, but it's still weekend. You have staff 7 days a week at a hotel, by the way, right? 7 days a week. Depending, people at least, when I was working there, I got 1 day off, right? So, and you have to work on the weekends because that's when you get the visitors from Trinidad. Foreign tourists, of course, will come for a week or 2 weeks at a time, but that's not year-round. So there are a lot of challenges, and what did they get? They got grants. But it wasn't sustainable. Now with Tobago Carnival, they're asking for money for their operation. And to me, it seems very similar. How is this sustainable? Why are you entitled to public funds for your private business venture?
I'll tell you what, let me expand on this after this. 2 points to make after this caller from Chagonas. Final caller for the morning. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, you're talking about recycling plastics.
Yes.
I've watched CNN and they tell you about things going on in Africa. There are a number of people who have been trying things, and there's one guy I think is in Nigeria, it's Kenya I think, that is using plastic bottles to make like building blocks and all that kind of thing.
Yes, it's two entrepreneurs, a lady and a young man who are making bricks from plastic waste. And from glass as well.
Like, if people look around and see, like, there are different people in different countries where people are trying to do things.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we can't, just copy what some of these guys are doing.
Yep. I hear you, caller.
You know?
It will provide, if you provide training, it provides opportunity. But I hear you very much, caller. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Have a good one. Now, I don't know if these individuals actually received any training or if they just did it on their own. But as with everything in Trinidad, sometimes you need to spoon-feed people. Yes, you're right. Glass and plastic to make bricks. An individual is making slippers out of old tires that are just lying. They go and they find tires, they make slippers out of it. There's one individual who's actually making briquettes, so coal briquettes from coconut waste. So whole coconut shells, they're actually making briquettes out of it, which of course is environmentally friendly, and it's excellent how it's being done. So there are opportunities, you're absolutely right, and perhaps on this program we could get a couple of those videos to show you and share it with you. There's one in particular that Sean and I saw that we would like to play for you with respect to roads being recycled.
Yes.
So one day we'll play that for you. But just to get back to Tobago, I don't know how many carnivals Tobago wants. I don't understand why Tobago's having another carnival. Tobago decided to do their own thing in November, and that should be the case. That should have been the case. Now, the Tobago Carnival Band Leaders Association, different from the THA, they're pushing for a carnival in Tobago this time, it would seem so. I don't think it is necessary, but if they say that it's an income earner for them as compared to November, that's one other thing. Before you go to that, I just want to finish making my point with respect to the individual who came to visit us. They were having some difficulties.
Right. Yeah.
Legally, they were having some difficulties. They lived abroad for a number of years. Born in Trinidad, migrated, then came back to Trinidad, and was living here for some time. You spoke about greedy lawyers. Well, this lawyer, very prominent attorney, an attorney who loves themselves, let me put it that way, took up the case and told the individual, told the client to come to a consultation. Consultation came, he says, yes, we know everything, you have all the details, I show you so and so. Had to pay for that consultation. You know, you get billed by the hour, right? Not just by the consultation, you get billed by the hour. Then the individual had to come back for another consultation. And she had to keep going back. She was getting no results, getting very frustrated, called the attorney to find out what was going on. What's the attorney's response? Oh, well, we'll come to my office and let's have a consultation. So it kept billing the lady. The lady was losing a lot of money because this, as I said, a prominent attorney who loves themselves, got nowhere. The case became stagnant, and I don't know what is happening since then. But it's very unfortunate. So you're right, there are some lawyers out there that just take you for a ride along and charge you by the hour. There are some that do that. And I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they are part of the cause or just one of the reasons as to the delay or the lags in the judicial system. But thought I'd just share that with you as you raise that point, caller from El Socorro.
There's another point I want to make about the Tobago Carnival situation. Now, on one hand, Tobago at times has been a destination for Trinis to get away from the noise and the bustle of Carnival, right? So with regards to the tourism product, you don't necessarily need the national carnival for Tobago to be able to sell the tourism part of the island for that weekend, right? That's not to say that it's better than having a carnival product to sell. I'm just saying it's a potential alternative. That said, the locals might want to have in their capacity to participate in the national carnival festivities, and to some extent it's only fair. I get that, I understand that. So it's not a clear-cut thing. Therefore, I have no problem with two carnivals. My issue is I do not want these things, the production costs for costumes and the operating costs of private ventures for either of these, right? You want to have two, fine. Do not pay certain things with public funds. If you're a private venture, you have to figure it out, especially if you want to.
Okay, for certain things.
Right? But for other things, with regards to
because I can use that argument against other things as well.
Right, but with regards to the responsibility of whatever their governing body for Carnival is, right? Fine, I get it. You have to pay for public funds for certain infrastructural things, for certain organizational things, etc., etc. But you have a private venture that's dependent on public funds in order for you to be able to finance it. If you want a loan, fine. But then the banks really should be the first in line for that sort of business, not the government.
Well, I suppose Sean has a point. Who knows? Maybe you can tell us that later on this week when we open up the phone lines again. I mean, it is a National Carnival Commission, not a Trinidad Carnival Commission.
But the NCC, wasn't the NCC kicked out of Tobago Carnival?
Well, yes, they were. But anyway, folks, as we close the show, thank you very much to all our callers for their contributions this morning. Thank you to our directors and those in Master Control who make Talking Point possible, and you, the viewer, for your continued support. We appreciate it. Sean Michael Small, closing thoughts?
Just that at the end of the day, we have to remember, even if we do not like one side of the political aisle, they are part of the nation too. We have said this before, so it's not as though we're singing Kumbaya now after the event we went to last night. We've said this before. We want both sides of the aisle to be strong. We want to put our best people in both positions of parliament, and we're all in this together, so let's not be combative. You wanna say that they did something wrong? Say that they did something wrong. Don't add all of the personal hyperbole in the end.
What's rather interesting is that he says we're not going to sing Kumbaya, but you sound like you're singing Kumbaya following last night. Huh? You sounded very much like...
You want to criticize them, but don't make it personal, because we have to work with both sides. They have to work with each other, we have to work with them.
Point received, ladies
right?
and gentlemen.
And if it's not good enough, then there's elections we need to
all right,
take
Sean.
elections more seriously.
All right, Sean. You don't need to justify it further than you already did. Kumbaya. Anyway, folks, thank you very much. Have a great day. Remember, today's a good day to have a good day.
And to
we'll
say
see you
kumbaya
again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Hi kids, your boy Tim Tim here, welcoming you to Disneyland, the biggest kids Juve party in the carnival. Only listen, Sunday, January 29th, all roads lead to the Queen's Park Savannah. I will be there with my brand new partner, Soca Monster. Who is asleep right now? Soca Monster, man, boy. People here, boy. Disneyland, boy.
Partner, Disneyland tickets are out, you know. Watch me. There's kids with paint, water, and soca in the savannah. I get in my rest now, so I can get the earliest early bird. Wait now! Is sleep you gonna and sleep too? Like you trying to get them tickets before me?
WESN.